My life is pretty normal for a young teacher. I'm Lily, and after working hard at a training college, I finally got a job at one of the best schools around. My plan was to teach, maybe do some writing on the side, and one day start a family with the right guy whenever he showed up. That part happened quicker than I thought, thanks to my college friend Nancy. Lily, you have to meet Charles. Nancy insisted one windy Monday afternoon over coffee. He's looking for something real, and you are too. I just have a good feeling about this. That evening, I met Charles at a local bar. He was easy to spot, taller than most people, with a loud laugh that filled the whole place. I was so nervous, fixing my hair over and over, but when he smiled, all my nerves disappeared. Hey, you must be Lily. Nancy hasn't stopped talking about you. No pressure, right? Charles joked as he pulled out a chair for me. Yeah, no pressure at all. I laughed as I sat down, thinking about how this one night could change my whole future. We hit it off right away. Charles worked in finance, not really my thing, but he made it sound exciting every time he talked about his day. He loved hiking, hated sushi, and had a soft spot for cheesy 90s movies. 5 years later, we were setting up our home together. The wedding was small, just close friends and family in a garden ceremony. It was perfect for us. Charles's mom, Karen, seemed nice enough. She was always polite and ready to help, so I thought things were off to a great start. Living together was easy at first. Charles was supportive, and we always had each other's backs. But then, the pressure started quietly at first, but soon it was constant. Lily, when are you two going to give me a grandchild? You know Charles is my only chance for this, Karen would casually say during her visits. It was like hearing the same thing over and over, each time more urgent. I tried to stay calm and keep the peace. We're working on it, Karen. These things take time, I'd say with a forced smile while chopping veggies or setting the table. After dinner one night, as we were cleaning up, Charles turned to me, and his expression softened.
Hey, sorry about Mom.
She's just excited. We're okay, right?
Charles asked.
Yeah, we're okay. I assured him, but deep down, I wondered how much longer we could handle the pressure before it started affecting us. Living under constant pressure to start a family felt like walking on eggshells, and Karen's reminders never seemed to stop. Each visit, she became more impatient, like sandpaper rubbing against my already worn nerves. One sunny Monday morning, Charles and I were enjoying a rare day off together. We were in the middle of a lazy breakfast when I saw Karen's car pull up. Even before she came inside, I knew we were in for another round of her questions about grandkids. Morning, you two. I just came from Amanda's grandkids' christening. Adorable little thing. So, any news on my future grandchild? Karen burst into the kitchen, full of expectations. Charles almost choked on his coffee, managing a polite, "Morning, Mom." I forced a smile and tried to stay calm. Hi, Karen. We're just enjoying breakfast. Would you like some coffee? I offered, hoping to change the subject.
No, I'm fine.
Just wanted to chat quickly. Lily, you're not getting any younger, you know. Timing is everything. You should be more proactive, maybe see a doctor, or try those fertility treatments I was reading about, Karen said, her voice a mix of concern and urgency. I felt my face getting hot. We're capable of handling it, Karen. We'll see a doctor if we feel it's necessary, not because we're on a deadline. I snapped, louder than I meant to. Under the table, Charles gently squeezed my hand, a silent request to stay calm. Mom, it's our life. We'll take care of it. Let's not ruin a nice morning, Charles said, his voice firm but respectful. Karen let out a dramatic sigh, clearly frustrated. I just want to see my grandkids while I'm still around to enjoy them. Is that too much to ask? There's more to our lives than just having babies, Karen. We have our careers and our own plans. I started, but Charles squeezed my hand again, warning me to tread lightly. I know, but family is everything. Karen shot back, her words sharp as she grabbed her purse. I'll leave you to your plans then, but just think about what I said, okay? After she left, the tension hung in the air like a bad smell. Charles and I spent the rest of the morning in silence, both deep in thought. Karen's visits were turning into a battleground, and we always found ourselves on the defensive. That evening, we decided to take a walk to clear our heads. She's my mom, and I love her, but I can't stand how she keeps pushing us. It's like she's checking off boxes on some life checklist, Charles said as we strolled through the park, letting out his frustration. I understand she's excited, but it feels like she's more focused on being a grandma than caring about our happiness or health. I replied, feeling my frustration build up. It's like we don't matter to her unless we have a grandchild. We need to set boundaries, Lily, Charles said, his grip on my hand tightening as we walked back home. Next time she brings it up, we have to be clear, firm, but clear. The reality of our situation hit me like a heavy weight in my stomach. Setting boundaries with Karen wasn't going to be easy, but it was necessary. I wasn't just fighting for our peace. I was fighting for our future, whatever it might hold. After all the stress and tense dinners, our biggest dream finally came true. I was pregnant. Charles and I were beyond happy, floating on a cloud of joy that felt almost unreal. But with our exciting news came Karen's overwhelming enthusiasm, now stronger than ever. We had just started working on the baby's room, painting the walls a soft, calming color and putting together a crib, which took way more patience than I thought I had. During one of those DIY afternoons, Karen showed up unannounced again. She was wearing a bright red t-shirt that said Future Grandma in big, bold letters. Look at this. Isn't it cute? Karen beamed, stretching the fabric for us to see. I got it custom made. Karen, could we maybe not announce it to everyone yet? We're still early on, and we're just trying to be cautious, I said as gently as I could, hoping to calm her excitement without starting an argument. Oh, honey, when you've got news this good, you shout it from the rooftops. Everyone's thrilled for us. Karen's voice grew louder with each word, her excitement bubbling over like a pot left on the stove too long. The next few weeks were a blur of Karen's constant check-ins. She was always calling or dropping by, armed with old wives' tales about pregnancy do's and don'ts. She made sure I ate certain things and avoided others, fussing over my schedule and sleep. It was suffocating. Karen, I really appreciate your help, but you hovering like this is stressing me out. I finally snapped one evening after her 10th lecture about the benefits of prenatal yoga. Even after that, the pressure didn't ease, and neither did my busy schedule. Balancing my teaching job with pregnancy wasn't easy, but I was determined to keep things as normal as possible. That was until one day at school, halfway through explaining a math problem to my 5th graders, I felt a sharp pain that stopped me mid-sentence. The room started spinning. The chalk slipped from my hand, and then everything went dark. I woke up in the hospital, the sharp smell of antiseptic filling my senses before I even opened my eyes. Charles was there, his face pale and tired, holding my hand tightly like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. They had to do surgery, he whispered, his voice shaky. It was serious, Lily. You almost didn't make it. We lost the baby. His words hit me like a punch, knocking the breath out of me. Tears poured down my face, bitter and uncontrollable. I was alive, but at what cost? The doctor came in, his expression serious as he adjusted his glasses. Lily, I'm afraid the complications were severe. You won't be able to have children in the future. It was a very rare and unfortunate situation. The room suddenly felt colder, and the walls seemed to close in around me. I lay there, the weight of this new reality pressing heavily on my chest. Charles squeezed my hand, trying to offer some comfort in the overwhelming sea of grief I was drowning in. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Karen burst into the room, her face full of anger and desperation. She didn't even pause to see how I was doing before she blurted out, I heard what happened. So, when are you going to try again? We need to start planning. I was still hooked up to N4, the dull pain in my stomach a constant reminder of what I had lost. Karen, I can't have children anymore. The surgery. My voice cracked as the reality hit me again, cold and hard. What do you mean you can't? That's ridiculous, Karen snapped, her face turning red. She stormed out of the room, probably to find a doctor who would tell her something different, something that wasn't true. Charles held my hand tighter, his eyes full of silent apologies for his mother's behavior. Karen came back not long after, her anger even worse now that the doctors had confirmed my condition. What did they say? This is absurd. You've taken away my chance to be a grandmother, she yelled, loud enough that a nurse peeked into the room, her eyes wide with concern. Mom, please, Charles said, his voice firm but pleading. This isn't helping. Lily needs to rest. Rest? What she needs to do is think about her family. About us. This is selfish, Karen said, her words cutting deep. I could barely hold it together. I didn't choose this, Karen. Why can't you understand? I almost died, I said, my voice breaking with both pain and frustration. Karen's eyes narrowed. If you had been more careful, this wouldn't have happened. You've always been too focused on your career. Maybe that's why. Enough. Charles's voice filled the room, sharp and commanding.
Mom, leave. Now.
We'll talk when you're ready to be reasonable. But Karen wasn't finished. She turned to me, her voice full of venom as she hissed. You're not worthy of my son. You can't give him what he needs. You're not a real woman. Her words pierced through me, leaving a sting that would never fade. A tear slipped down my cheek, mixing with the bitterness of her cruel words. Charles practically had to drag her out, and I could still hear her protests echoing down the hallway. Recovery was slow, and when I finally returned home, the emptiness was unbearable. I tried going back to teaching, hoping the routine and the sound of children's laughter would help, but every joyful noise reminded me of what I had lost. Seeing a psychologist helped a bit. You need to grieve, Lily, not just for your child, but for the life that's now behind you, Dr. Alexander said during one of our sessions. Her words, though meant to heal, also made the finality of my loss even more real. One day, during an especially tough week, I made a decision. I can't teach right now, I admitted to Charles over a quiet dinner. When I see the kids, I just see what I've lost. I'm thinking about working at the library. It's peaceful, quiet. So, I took a job at the local library, leaving the busy school hallways for the calm aisles filled with books and quiet visitors. It was a place where my heart could begin to heal, away from the prying eyes and constant expectations. Even though I had moved on to the peaceful life at the library, Karen's presence still hung over us. She wouldn't stop bringing up the topic of grandchildren, becoming more invasive and harsh with each passing day. As months went by, her accusations only grew sharper. On my birthday, a day I hoped would be light and free from pressure, Karen cornered me in the kitchen just as I was about to cut the cake. Her voice was low and full of venom. When are you going to fix this, Lily? You need to give Charles children, she hissed. I froze, the knife trembling slightly in my hand. Karen, Charles and I have been thinking about adoption. It's a beautiful way to build a family, I said, trying to keep my voice calm despite the storm inside me. Adoption? Over my dead body. Karen exploded, her face twisting with disgust. I won't have you bring some stranger's child into our family. Who knows what kind of sick, twisted genes they have. No grandchild of mine will come from someone who couldn't even keep them. Her hateful outburst echoed through the kitchen, and the living room fell into silence. I could feel everyone's eyes on us, their stares weighing me down like a heavy blanket. That's enough, Karen, I snapped, letting the knife fall onto the counter with a clatter. I stood tall and faced her. You don't get to decide how Charles and I build our family. This is our life, our choice, I said firmly. Karen's eyes narrowed, and with an angry huff, she stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door so hard it made the windows shake. The room stayed silent, all the joy of the day gone with her. The discord Karen had planted grew quickly. At first, it was just subtle whispers, a look here, a nudge there suggesting I had been careless during my pregnancy. Then, the rumors turned into full-blown gossip, accusing me of drinking and behaving badly, which supposedly caused my miscarriage. The anger inside me built like a storm. One evening, after overhearing a particularly nasty version of the rumor from someone I thought was a friend, I decided I had enough. I called Karen. Karen, this has to stop now, I said firmly. Spreading lies about me is not just hurtful, it's slander. And I won't tolerate it anymore. If I hear one more rumor, I'm going to the police, and I'll sue you for libel. There was silence on the other end, a quiet moment that felt like the calm before a storm. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and lacking its usual fire. You wouldn't dare.
Try me, Karen.
I'm done playing nice. After that call, the rumors stopped just as suddenly as they had started, but the damage was done. The relationship was strained, and family gatherings were now cold and formal, no matter how much we tried to pretend everything was fine. Life seemed to go back to normal, but everything had changed. Then, one morning, I opened my inbox to find an electronic postcard. The image showed a happy family, 2 parents with children playing around them, the perfect picture of happiness. But below it, in cruel, bold letters, were the words, "You will never be a mother." My heart sank, and a shiver ran down my spine. Who would send something so hateful? As if that wasn't bad enough, the attacks soon became physical. One afternoon, after returning from work, I found a box on our porch. Inside were dolls, smeared with ketchup, making it look grotesque. A note was attached, twisting the knife deeper. "This is your fault. You are to blame for losing your child." I was horrified. Each new message, each package, felt like a punch to my already fragile state. Tears became my constant companion as I struggled to understand the cruelty of these attacks. "Charles, look at this," I said one evening, handing him yet another horrible package. My hands were shaking, and my voice was barely a whisper. "It's too much. I can't take this anymore," I said, feeling completely overwhelmed. Charles acted quickly. "Our neighbor, Mr. George, has cameras everywhere. Maybe he caught something on video," he suggested. The next day, we approached Mr. George, who was more than happy to help. He played back the footage, and there, clear as day, was Karen, sneaking up to our door and leaving those awful packages. Seeing her do this was both a relief and a nightmare. "I can't believe Mom would go this far," Charles muttered, disgust all over his face. With the evidence in hand, we confronted Karen at her house. The video was paused on the laptop screen, showing her in the act of hatred. "Look at this, Mom. How could you?" Charles's voice was cold, his usual warmth gone. He pushed the laptop towards her, the hurt in his voice echoing around the room. Karen glanced at the screen, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, without any hint of remorse, she shrugged. "She's damaged goods, Charles. An inferior woman who can't continue the family line. I did what I had to do, for you, for the family's sake." Charles stepped in front of me, protective. "If you can't accept Lily, then you can't be part of our lives. This is your last chance, Mom. Apologize or we're done." Karen's face hardened, her eyes cold. "I'm only doing this for you, Charles. She's taking you away from what you deserve." The ride home was silent, both of us lost in thought. I was crushed, the weight of Karen's betrayal pressing heavily on me. Charles was furious, the bond with his mother stretched to its breaking point. In the days that followed, Charles became unusually quiet. His cheerful nature dimmed, the tension between him and his mother weighing on him. Despite everything, it was clear he missed her. So, when we received a Christmas invitation from Karen, I agreed to go for his sake, hoping for some sort of reconciliation. When we arrived, the house was full of relatives and friends, the smell of pine and mulled wine in the air. Karen greeted us with a tight smile, her eyes darting nervously. I took a deep breath and held onto Charles's arm as we moved through the crowd, trying to stay hopeful. At first, the evening went well, with laughter and conversation filling the room. But then, in the middle of the gathering, Charles's ex-fiancée, Angela, showed up. The room fell silent as Karen welcomed her in. "As you all know, Lily can't have children," Karen began, her voice cold and cutting. "So, I think it's time Charles reconsidered his options. Angela is more than willing to take her place and give me the grandchildren I deserve." Her cruel words echoed through the room, and the silence that followed was suffocating. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my ears. Charles's voice, low and angry, broke the silence. "Mom, what are you talking about? I didn't agree to any of this." I couldn't hold back any longer. "How could you?" I said, scanning the crowd, my voice trembling with emotion. Karen has been tormenting me, sending hateful messages, and leaving disturbing packages at our door. I pulled out my phone and showed the video from Mr. George's camera, the footage clearly showing Karen's awful actions. Gasps of shock and disgust filled the room. Angela, looking just as horrified, stepped forward. "I had no idea about any of this," she said. "Karen invited me here, saying we were just catching up. I'm actually engaged to someone else, and I don't want to interfere. I never wanted children, that's why Charles and I broke up." The room buzzed with whispers and stunned faces. Karen's friends and family began to leave, their expressions ranging from embarrassed to outraged. It was clear they sympathized with us. Karen, now pale and flustered, tried to defend herself. "I was only trying to make sure my son had a proper family." Charles's voice was cold and final. "By destroying the family you already had, I don't consider you my mother anymore. We're done." Months had passed since that disastrous Christmas, and life had finally started to settle into a peaceful rhythm. Charles and I were busy with the adoption process, focusing on the child who would soon join our family. It was a time of hope and healing, but it didn't take long for Karen to try and come back into our lives. One chilly morning, a knock at the door broke the quiet. When I opened it, there stood Karen, her eyes red, looking remorseful. "Lily, I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, her voice shaky. "I know I've made terrible mistakes."
Can we talk?
I hesitated for a moment, then said, "I'm listening," leaving the door slightly open but not inviting her in. "I've been so foolish," she continued. "I was so focused on my own desires that I lost sight of what really matters. I've hurt you and Charles deeply, and I'm truly sorry. Can we start over, please?" "Karen, after everything that's happened, it's not that simple," I replied. "Charles and I are moving forward with adopting a child. That's our focus now." I spoke with a firm voice, reflecting the resolve I felt in my heart. The mention of adoption seemed to trigger something in Karen, her face twisting as her old prejudices resurfaced. "You can't seriously be thinking of bringing someone else's child into this family."
It's wrong, she snapped.
"That's exactly what we're doing, Karen, and it's not your decision. It's ours." I shot back, my patience wearing thin. "This is madness, Lily. You're making a mistake. A real family." "No, Karen, we're done here," I interrupted, and without waiting for her response, I closed the door firmly in her face. The click of the latch sounded like the final end of our relationship. Inside, Charles stood at the top of the stairs, having heard the entire exchange. "Everything okay?" he asked as he walked down to join me. "I think it finally is," I said, leaning into his embrace. "I told her we're adopting and she didn't take it well, but it's really over this time." Charles nodded, his face set with determination. "Let's make it official then." Together, we blocked Karen's number on our phones and sent messages to our friends and family, explaining that we had decided to cut ties with her for the sake of our future family's peace and well-being. The adoption process moved forward, and with each step came a new sense of excitement and anticipation. We filled out forms, attended interviews, and prepared a room filled with love, ready for the new beginnings that awaited us. As the waiting period came to an end, I felt drawn back to my old life in the classroom. I returned to teaching, and the joy of being around children once again lit up a part of me that had dimmed during those dark times. Standing in front of my class, I realized how much I had grown, how resilient I had become. The laughter of the children echoed through the halls, a sweet sound that filled the empty spaces left by lost dreams. It reminded me that when some doors close, others open, and behind this new door was a future filled with hope and the laughter of a child who would soon call us Mom and Dad.